What drives someone to deliberately seek out children to harm them? How does pure evil manage to masquerade as virtue so convincingly that an entire community is blind to the darkness in their midst? The most haunting crimes aren't those committed in shadows by strangers, but those perpetrated by individuals who carefully cultivate an image of respectability and trust. This is the story of how two men weaponize their sterling reputations, their positions of influence, and society's willingness to believe in fairy tales, all to orchestrate one of the most disturbing cases of betrayal in Georgia's history. When the truth finally emerged about what was happening inside that prestigious suburban home, it didn't just destroy the carefully constructed facade of two seemingly upstanding citizens. It shattered the foundations of an entire community's belief system. The revelation forced everyone to confront an uncomfortable reality. Sometimes the monsters aren't hiding under the bed. They're serving on community boards and attending PTA meetings. This investigation began almost by accident, a chance discovery that pulled loose a single thread in what would prove to be an elaborate tapestry of deception. What followed was the systematic unraveling of a nightmare that had been hiding in plain sight, protected by the very institutions and social structures meant to prevent such horrors. Welcome to True Crime Stories Archive, where we peel back the layers of humanity's darkest moments to expose the truth that lies beneath. To our loyal viewers and subscribers, thank you for your unwavering support as we continue to bring these crucial stories to light. If you're new here, join our community as we work to ensure these stories are never forgotten and their lessons never ignored. Our story begins with William Zulo, a man whose roots ran deep in Georgia's red clay soil. Born into a family that exemplified traditional Southern values, William's early life read like a blueprint for success. His parents weren't wealthy, but they were rich in principles, instilling in him an understanding that reputation and community service were currencies more valuable than gold. As William matured, he channeled these early lessons into a career in public service. His colleagues would later describe him as methodical, almost obsessive in his attention to detail. Every document filed perfectly, every procedure followed to the letter. Traits that would later take on a more sinister significance when the truth emerged. But it wasn't just his professional life that seemed to shine. William became known as the neighbor who would clear your driveway after a storm, the citizen who never missed a town hall meeting, the volunteer who stayed latest at community events. He crafted an image so pristine that questioning it seemed almost sacrilegious. Enter Zachary Zulo, whose path to notoriety began in Atlanta's bustling financial district. Where William was steady and methodical, Zachary was dynamic and charismatic. His career in banking opened doors into Atlanta's elite social circles, where he quickly established himself as someone who could demystify complex financial matters for his wealthy clients. Zachary's charm wasn't limited to the boardroom. He had an uncanny ability to make everyone feel like they were the most important person in the room. Whether hosting charity galas or attending local fundraisers, he moved through social situations with the kind of ease that made others instinctively trust him. His generosity became legendary, always the first to write a check for a good cause, always ready with connections to help a friend in need. Their paths intersected at a professional networking event in downtown Atlanta, where the polished halls of a luxury hotel became the backdrop for a pivotal moment. Most meetings between future spouses evoke images of romantic serendipity, but this encounter would later be scrutinized for signs of calculated intention. Their initial conversation, centered on their shared passion for community service, sparked what appeared to be a genuine connection. The courtship that followed seemed to embody every element of a modern fairy tale. Two successful professionals, each complementing the other's strengths, united by their apparent desire to make a meaningful impact on their community. Their relationship progressed with the same meticulous attention to detail that characterized their professional lives. Their wedding day painted a perfect picture of Southern elegance. Under a canopy of Georgia pines, surrounded by an impressive gathering of Atlanta's professional elite, William and Zachary exchanged vows that would later ring hollow with tragic irony. The ceremony, held outdoors on a pristine spring afternoon, featured elaborate floral arrangements and heartfelt promises of building a legacy together. Wedding guests would later recall how William's steady demeanor seemed to perfectly balance Zachary's magnetic charm. Their vows spoke of creating a home filled with love and purpose, dreams that would curdle into nightmares. Photographs from that day would later haunt investigators, images of two men promising to cherish and protect, while harboring intentions too dark to fathom. Following their marriage, the Zulocks quickly established themselves as what appeared to be the perfect power couple. Their professional successes continued to mount, their social calendar remained full, and their commitment to community service seemed unwavering. But beneath this carefully curated image, a sinister plan was taking shape. Their decision to adopt children appeared, on the surface, to be the natural progression of their family story. To their social circle, it represented the ultimate expression of their philanthropic nature, successful professionals opening their hearts and home to children in need. The timing seemed perfect, their motives appeared pure, and their qualifications looked impeccable. The process of adopting their two young sons went through a respected Christian special needs adoption agency, known for its thorough vetting procedures. The boys, still at tender ages where one was mastering reading and the other just beginning to grasp the concept of family, had already weathered more storms than any child should. Their early years were marked by instability, shuffling between foster homes, their hearts yearning for a place to finally call their own. The Zulocks appeared to be answer to these children's prayers. Their professional credentials, community standing, and outward dedication to family values made them seem like ideal candidates. The agency's rigorous screening process, designed to protect vulnerable children, became instead a challenge for William and Zachary to perform their way through. Their performances proved masterful, every question answered perfectly, every home visit choreographed immaculately. When the adoption was finalized, it seemed like the beginning of a heartwarming success story. The early days in the Zulock household appeared picture-perfect. Family vacations to sun-soaked beaches, exciting trips to amusement parks, celebrations of every achievement no matter how small, all carefully documented and shared with their admiring social circle. The transformation in the boys seemed remarkable at first. Their tentative smiles grew broader, their laughter more frequent. They began to show signs of settling into the stability they'd been denied for so long. Teachers noticed initial improvements in their engagement at school, while neighbors commented on how fortunate the brothers were to have found such devoted parents. The Zulocks spared no expense in providing for their sons. The best schools, new clothes, enriching activities, all the trappings of a privileged upbringing were lavished upon the children. To outsiders, it appeared to be the perfect example of how love and resources could transform young lives. But beneath this carefully constructed facade, darkness was taking root. The first hints of trouble were subtle, easily dismissed by those who witnessed them. The boys' behavior began to shift in ways that should have raised alarm bells, but were instead rationalized away. In the classroom, teachers began noticing troubling changes. The once engaging brothers grew increasingly withdrawn, their academic performance declining sharply. During lessons, they would sit silently, their eyes fixed downward, shoulders hunched as if carrying an invisible burden. When called upon, their responses became barely audible whispers. The behavioral shifts extended beyond school walls. Neighbors observed how the boys clung to each other during social gatherings, their body language speaking volumes about their hidden distress. Simple gestures, a hand raised too quickly, a sudden movement, would cause them to flinch visibly. When their adoptive fathers were present, the children seemed to shrink into themselves, their natural childish energy replaced by an unnatural stillness. These red flags, now glaring in hindsight, were rationalized by a community too invested in the perfect image the Zulocks had crafted. Teachers attributed the changes to typical adoption adjustment struggles. Neighbors dismissed their observations, convinced by William and Zachary's sterling reputations. The brothers' increasing isolation was explained away as simple shyness, their fear disguised as introversion. The facade began to crumble when law enforcement's investigation into a local pedophile ring yielded an unexpected breakthrough. A member of this ring, caught downloading exploitative content, revealed the Zulocks' involvement in producing material featuring their adopted sons. This revelation sent shockwaves through the investigating team, who immediately launched a comprehensive probe into the seemingly perfect family. What investigators uncovered behind the Zulocks' carefully maintained veneer was beyond horrifying. Digital evidence painted a picture of calculated evil that had been hiding in plain sight. Their devices contained damning messages, including a particularly chilling Snapchat communication where Zachary brazenly detailed his intentions to abuse one of his sons. The investigation proceeded meticulously, with law enforcement obtaining search warrants for the Zulocks' home and electronic devices. Each piece of evidence they uncovered revealed new layers of horror. Digital forensics experts worked tirelessly, piecing together a timeline through recovered messages, photographs, and videos that documented the systematic abuse occurring within the suburban home. The most damning evidence came from Zachary's online communications with other predators, where he discussed the exploitation of the children with chilling casualness. These exchanges revealed not just the acts themselves, but the premeditated nature of their crimes. The investigators discovered that the adoption itself had been part of their calculated plan, a revelation that would later lead to scrutiny of the entire adoption system. As the evidence mounted, the prosecutors built an airtight case. The courtroom fell silent as the charges were read, multiple counts of aggravated molestation and sexual exploitation of minors. The prosecution's presentation left no room for doubt, methodically laying out how the Zulocks had used their respectable facades to perpetrate their crimes. Faced with overwhelming evidence, both William and Zachary entered guilty pleas. The courtroom, packed with community members who had once admired them, sat in stunned silence as their admissions echoed through the chamber. Representatives speaking on behalf of the victims detailed the profound impact of the abuse, their words carrying the weight of unimaginable trauma. The community's response was a mixture of horror, guilt, and soul-searching. Many who had praised the Zulocks now grappled with having missed the signs of abuse. The case sparked intense discussions about the effectiveness of child protection systems and the dangers of accepting surface appearances without deeper scrutiny. When sentencing day arrived, the judge's decision was unequivocal: 100 years in prison for each man, with no possibility of parole. The sentence reflected not just the severity of their crimes, but the betrayal of the fundamental trust placed in them as adoptive parents. For the young victims, liberation from their abusers marked the beginning of an arduous journey toward healing. The brothers were immediately placed in a specialized care facility, staffed by professionals trained in handling severe trauma cases. Their new environment prioritized safety and stability, two fundamental needs that had been weaponized against them in their previous home. The therapeutic process began cautiously, with counselors understanding that rebuilding trust would be their greatest challenge. These boys had experienced betrayal at its most fundamental level. Their safe haven had been transformed into a prison, their protectors into predators. The therapy sessions were carefully structured to help them process their trauma while rediscovering their own strength and identity. Support poured in from multiple directions. Advocacy groups specializing in child abuse cases stepped forward, ensuring the brothers had access to comprehensive medical care, ongoing psychological support, and educational resources. These organizations understood that healing from such profound trauma required a long-term, multifaceted approach. The community's response evolved from initial shock to active engagement. Fundraisers were organized to support the brothers' ongoing care, while awareness campaigns about child abuse prevention gained unprecedented momentum. Local organizations began implementing stricter protocols for identifying and reporting potential abuse cases. The case exposed critical vulnerabilities in the adoption system. Despite the Zulocks passing initial screenings, their ability to manipulate the process highlighted dangerous gaps in the verification procedures. Child welfare experts began advocating for more rigorous background checks, continuous monitoring of adoptive families, and enhanced training for agency staff in recognizing subtle signs of predatory behavior. The legal community used the case to push for systemic reforms. While the 100-year sentences represented justice served, many argued that prevention was equally crucial. Discussions centered on strengthening oversight mechanisms, improving communication between child protection agencies, and establishing more effective early warning systems. The ripple effects of the Zulock case extended far beyond the courtroom. Experts in child protection began examining how predators could exploit positions of trust and respectability. The case became a sobering reminder that appearances can be dangerously deceiving. Successful careers, community involvement, and social status could serve as effective camouflage for those intending harm. The tragedy prompted a fundamental shift in how communities approach child safety. Teachers, healthcare providers, and social workers underwent enhanced training to recognize subtle indicators of abuse. The previously dismissed signs, the brothers' withdrawal, their flinching at sudden movements, their excessive clinginess to each other, became part of a broader educational initiative about recognizing trauma responses in children. Religious and adoption organizations faced increased scrutiny of their vetting procedures. Questions arose about how thoroughly potential parents are screened and whether current systems adequately protect vulnerable children. The need for ongoing monitoring of adoptive families, rather than just initial screenings, became a focal point of policy discussions. The case ultimately served as a catalyst for change across multiple systems. Law enforcement agencies improved their protocols for investigating potential child exploitation. Schools implemented more rigorous monitoring of behavioral changes in students. Community organizations developed better channels for reporting and addressing concerns about child welfare. Yet perhaps the most profound impact was on society's collective consciousness. The Zulock case shattered the comfortable assumption that evil announces itself clearly. It forced people to confront the uncomfortable reality that predators often hide behind respected professions, charitable works, and seemingly perfect lives. The legacy of this case continues to influence child protection policies and community vigilance. While the 100-year sentences ensure the Zulocks will never harm another child, the true measure of justice lies in preventing similar tragedies. Every policy changed, every red flag recognized, and every child protected represents a small victory born from this devastating case. The Zulock case stands as a stark reminder that protecting our children requires more than just systems and protocols. It demands constant vigilance and a willingness to question even those who seem above suspicion. It teaches us that evil rarely presents itself openly, often hiding behind carefully constructed facades of respectability and good works. As we reflect on this devastating story, we must ask ourselves, How can we better protect the most vulnerable members of our society? What signs might we be missing in our own communities? The answers aren't simple, but they begin with awareness and a commitment to speaking up when something doesn't feel right. For the two brave brothers who survived this ordeal, their journey of healing continues. Their resilience serves as a powerful testament to the human spirit's capacity to survive and recover from unimaginable trauma. While their story began in darkness, their future holds the promise of light, supported by professionals and a community committed to their well-being. To every viewer who has stayed with us through this difficult story, thank you. Your willingness to confront these harsh realities helps ensure such stories don't remain hidden in the shadows. By understanding how these crimes occur, we become better equipped to prevent them. If you believe a child might be in danger, don't hesitate to act. Report your concerns to local authorities or child protection services. Remember, it's better to speak up and be wrong than to remain silent and allow abuse to continue. To stay informed about similar cases and join our community dedicated to exposing truth, please subscribe to True Crime Stories Archive. Share this video to spread awareness and join the conversation in the comments below. Together, we can work toward a future where every child's home is truly a sanctuary, not a facade hiding unspeakable horrors. This has been True Crime Stories Archive, reminding you that the greatest weapon against evil is our refusal to look away from uncomfortable truths.